All right, my friends. We just pressed the Let's Go Live button over here on the back end, which means we've got to wait for the tubes to fire up all across the fruited plain of the interwebs. Before we go ahead and get started, got to make sure the tubes are working. And it looks like they are. Wow, that's tremendous news. Doesn't always happen that quickly, but things are working. So that means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we're talking about state versus state civil lawfare underway all across the fruited plain of America. We have a big fun one to get into today. Missouri suing New York because of their election rigging, courtesy of Alvin Bragg, Matthew Colangelo, the Democrats, Tish James, all the rest of them. But we're going to take a look at what's coming out from Andrew Bailey, the Attorney General from Missouri, because he submitted a version of a civil complaint with the United States Supreme Court. And we've talked about this before, this process here, whereby one state sues another state. And we spent some time on this actually back during 2020 in the aftermath of that rigged election, when we had, I believe it was the state of Texas and a bunch of other attorneys general signing on to a lawsuit to stop the recount and to basically call for some investigation into the rigged election. And that didn't end up going anywhere because the Supreme Court rejected it. But now that's what is happening now. So Missouri is knocking on the door of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court governs the battles between these two states. It's almost like they're independent countries, and they're at war now. We've got a little lawfare, civil lawfare happening. And Missouri says, New York, you're interfering with our election. You're interfering with our civil liberties. We can't hear from President Trump. You have gagged him, and that makes it hard for our citizens to get the information that they need from the candidate they support in an election to which they're entitled to proper information. So we're going to go through it. We're going to see what's inside. It's a nice filing. It is in the Supreme Court of the United States. Boy, we've had a lot of Supreme Court business this week, and we're happy with that. We're okay with that. And then in our second segment, we're going to talk about Merrick Garland. He is getting sued, and not just by anybody, by the House Republicans. So Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, was ordered to deliver those Biden audio tapes over. And we know what happens to people who don't follow congressional subpoenas. Well, they get held in contempt. And we know what happens to people who get held in contempt and still don't comply. They go to prison. Peter Navarro's there, and so is Steve Bannon. And so now the question is, why isn't Merrick Garland joining them? If Congress issued a valid subpoena and he ignored it, and now he's been held in contempt, what's Congress going to do? Well, for now, they're filing a lawsuit, right? So they're going to ask the courts to come in here and settle this. And this is pretty ordinary stuff. Remember, when we've got a three co-equal branch system. And so if we've got a problem between two branches, we take it over to the third, and the idea is that the checks and balances of the third branch will be able to settle it between the two. So we'll see if Garland is going to be forced to give up those audio tapes, but the House Republicans sent it over. And so Anna Paulina Luna is also talking about moving forward with another inherent contempt vote against Attorney General Merrick Garland, which means that they could maybe fine him or arrest him or something. So they're going to dig into it and look at all other possible options. But Mike Johnson also explained some of this, saying we're just taking it to the courts. We'll see what the courts say about it. And then the White House was here in the aftermath of Joe Biden's terrible debate, trying to explain away what they're going to be doing. And apparently Joe Biden was on the phone today telling everybody, all of his staff people, that I'm not going anywhere, okay? I'm sticking around, and I'm going to continue to ride this horse until it's absolutely dead. And so we'll see what Karine said. She did confirm that Biden does take a little nappy time, a little nappy, because he gets a little tired and sleepy there. You know, leading the free world's a tiring job, I'm sure. So he has to nap. Byron Donalds was out here saying, look, none of this is new, okay? We've already heard about this. We know Joe Biden has been gone for like half of a decade now. And so I don't know what everybody's freaking out about. So we'll hear from Byron Donalds and see what he has to say about all of this. We got 2 segments today. We got some pretty juicy, meaty filings that have come out. And so we'll spend some time on those. Now this morning, for our members, we had a great members stream this morning. We talked about a bunch of the election stuff. Dems, literally, this is the quote, freaked the F out because Trump is surging. Biden is careening. You've seen all day, there's this Kamala talk, there's this Joe Biden talk. Nobody knows what the heck's going on. So they're freaked the F out. We also went through a leaked poll that they were forwarding around amongst Democratic inner circles. And the polls are not looking so good for Joe. And they didn't have Hillary on that list, and they didn't have Michelle Obama on the list, but Trump is looking pretty solid. So we talked about all that. And then there was this wild conspiracy theory. There's some dude on X who's saying that the Russians were responsible for the debate performance. Apparently they used a directed energy weapon to beam dementia right into Joe Biden's brain. Now, I don't know how that works, but I'm not at KGB, even though many have accused me of that for my positions on Ukraine. But no, we're not friends with Pootie Poo. Or we have no inside knowledge about their dementia ray, okay? But apparently they do. They beamed it into Biden's head, or somebody poisoned him or something. Clearly, anything but actual dementia. It's so ridiculous. So we talked about that this morning, and we'll get some of those segments out. If you missed them, if you're not a member, we do sometimes try to get those segments out. And so we'll post some of those out if you missed them this morning. The dementia ray from the Russians. Oh, gosh. So, yeah, they all should get scanned, right? Their neurological scans should happen. Now, before we get into any of this, we got some bad news, my friends. If you're keeping an eye on this bird flu stuff, well, guess what? A 4th human has now been infected. Health officials say it's just mild symptoms. Only eye inflammation. And this person has recovered, so nothing to worry about. Dairy worker in Colorado has been infected with the bird flu. 4th human case. Officials say the man experienced mild symptoms, only eye inflammation, a condition known as conjunctivitis. Now, the Colorado Department of Health said that the man was given antiviral medication and has recovered, and so they're working on figuring out what the heck happened here. So the point is, we don't know what's floating around out there. There's a bunch of stuff all over the place, and this stuff just pops up, and then they tell us it's an emergency. So the thing we can do is be prepared. Good idea to have life-saving medications on hand, not just remedies, but stuff that can really help if you need it. We know that the election's right around the corner. There's all sorts of stuff going on. And so everybody should get a prescription contagion emergency kit from our friends at the Wellness Company, because it's just nice to have some extra supplies on hand. You've got medications for bird flu, COVID, respiratory illnesses. Inside one of these little kits, you'll see things like ivermectin, Tamiflu, nebulizers. And when you get it all, it's assembled easily for you. And it comes with a guidebook so you know how to use it. It's backed by research by people like Dr. Peter McCullough. It is the Wellness Company's Contagion Emergency Kit. Every American should have at least one. You can get yours very easily. Go to twc.health/Robert. Link is down in the description below. Use code Robert, and you can save 10% off, and you'll get free shipping. Use code Robert at checkout, twc.health/Robert. These kits are only available in the United States, and we appreciate you getting prepared and supporting our sponsors, our friends at the Wellness Company. And so check those out. The link's down in the description below. But now let's turn our attention to the big news on the day. And this is a fun one. State versus state. Missouri suing New York and Alvin Bragg for their election interference for rigging 2024 by prosecuting Trump, taking him out of the campaign, costing him millions of dollars, and gagging him while they present rigged evidence with a biased judge in one of the most inappropriate jurisdictions in the entire country might be a problem when you're trying to have a free and fair election. So Alvin Bragg now gets hit with this puppy from Missouri, and it is from the Attorney General. We've talked a lot about him because he has a lot of good filings. His name is Andrew Bailey, and here's what he posted over on X. We'll get into the full filing and also hear from him. But he says, all right, America, I have filed suit against the state of New York for hijacking the presidential election by illegally scheming to jail their presidential opponent, President Trump. Says New York is waging war on American democracy, some might say insurrecting us, and Missouri will not let it stand. Good. It's nice to see it. Says New York's illicit prosecution, gag order, and sentencing of President Trump, which has also now been postponed, has undermined his ability to campaign. He was bogged down there in trial every day, except Wednesdays. Then Joe Biden came out and said, how about we debate on Wednesday? Make my day, pal. And then Joe Biden showed up and took a dookie right on himself in front of all of America. Now, the overt meddling in a presidential election sabotages Missourians' ability to cast a well-informed vote mere months before the election, a point we've made for a long time. Not only is Trump's gag problematic for Trump, does it limit his ability to communicate to us? Clearly it does. But what about our ability to receive information from him? If you are like me and you think the justice system, kind of a necessary part of a functional country, and we have concerns that that justice system is being wrecked, well, the person who is the subject in the story of the wrecking might have some nice perspective, unique, in fact, that we'd like to hear from, wouldn't we? Yes, we would. Donald Trump cannot communicate that to us, so that hurts us. That impedes our rights and infringes on our liberties. So New York's illicit prosecution undermines his ability to campaign. The overt meddling sabotages Missourians, their citizens' rights. So Bailey says, I'm asking the Supreme Court to declare that New York's actions unlawfully interfere with the presidential election. The Supreme Court of the United States, by the way, to remove any gag orders against Trump and to halt the impending sentencing until after the presidential election. Now, it was scheduled to happen just about a week from today, but they postponed it into September now because of the immunity decision that came down from the Supreme Court. Now, Judge Merchan and the prosecutors are like, oh, crap. Did we use any official acts evidence in our trial? Oh, yeah, you did. Well, that means maybe you shouldn't have, and that your trial is now illegitimate. You've conducted a mistrial because you should have stopped and paused the case because the appeal was already pending when trial was underway at the Supreme Court level, and Judge Merchan just barreled through it. So now the question is very simple. Can you just lift the gag so we can talk about the judge's corrupt daughter? Or I guess the daughter's not very corrupt because she's open about it. She's like, yeah, I work for Joe Biden. I've raised tens of millions of dollars for them. Maybe 100 million now. 93 at last count. So she's open about it. But the judge, I think, is the one we could say is a little more corrupt because he's saying that that is not a benefit to him or his family. The fact that his daughter is making money hand over fist, raising money for Democrats, and using Trump's criminal prosecution in her email newsletters and Facebook ad campaigns. Like, that's not a benefit. And not just using any Trump prosecutions, her daddy's, right? There's no conflict there. Come on, judge. And then the judge donated $35 in 2 spite donations. $20. You know he can afford more than that, but he didn't want to. He wanted to make it a small donation from a small person. How many small donors did Joe Biden get? So $35 the next day. Trump says something. He posts something on X. And he goes out there and he files another filing. He knows he shouldn't do that. He's a judge. So you can't talk about his daughter. You can't talk about those things because it is a big problem. So now Trump has been gagged. Andrew Bailey says the Supreme Court, we need their permission, right? You don't just get to file lawsuits states against states. So you need to get their permission. So you go in there and you say, hey, Supreme Court, can we have your permission to please sue them? And the Supreme Court will come out and say, maybe, yes or no. Says that we are asking for the Supreme Court to invoke its original jurisdiction. So we just go directly to SCOTUS. We bypass all the other stuff because it's one state versus another. Under Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution and settle this once and for all. Says right now, Missouri has a huge problem with New York. Missouri's not alone, man. We're all Missouri right now. And I will not sit idly by while a Soros-backed prosecutors in New York hold Missouri voters hostage in this presidential election. And so a great ex-post from Andrew Bailey, the Attorney General out of Missouri. And that is not just empty rhetoric. He has, in fact, filed a suit. You see, this is Missouri versus New York, state versus state in a new era of lawfare in the United States, saying that in the Supreme Court of the United States, our citizens of Missouri are sick and tired of prosecutors like Alvin Bragg and Matthew Colangelo, who came from Joe Biden's office, and Tish James, and the rest of them, like Cy Vance, and the two who resigned, like Mark Pomerantz and Kerry Dunn, resigned after whining that they weren't going to prosecute Trump. It's been rigged from the beginning. So saying you are now impeding on our rights in Missouri. So here's a motion for leave. So this is permission. Supreme Court, do we have permission here to file a bill of complaint, which we can think of that as a lawsuit? File a civil lawsuit asking for relief. They say, here, Supreme Court, we are now knocking on your door, respectfully seeking leave to file the accompanying bill of complaint against the state of New York. Now, Missouri's asking for very modest relief, not asking for the world here. All we want is a simple stay of New York's gag order on Trump. Merchan said, you can't talk about my daughter or the fact that she donated and works for Democrats, and in particular, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And they want a stay of the impending sentence against Trump during the 2024 election season, so that Missourians and the rest of us can participate in the election free from New York's exercise of coercive power, limiting the ability of Trump to campaign, which was by design. He was there every day in a cold, freezing courtroom, giving little press briefings on Tuesdays, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. And Joe Biden was even mocking him about that. Now, as set forth in the accompanying brief, which we'll read, and the complaint, the actions by New York, says Missouri, have created constitutional harms to our citizens that threaten to infringe on our rights. Namely, the gag order unlawfully impedes the ability of electors to fulfill their federal functions. And also, the gag order also violates the Purcell principle. And New York's gag order also violates the First Amendment rights of Missouri citizens to listen to the campaign of a specific individual. Free speech also means freedom to hear the speech. You don't have any free speech if you can only speak to the wall. So the right to receive is ours, and they've stripped that away from us. Now, Missouri respectfully submits, Supreme Court, that the foregoing violations constitutes considerable harms to the voters, and our voters will be precluded from fully engaging in or hearing from major party candidates all the way up during this election. These harms are direct from New York. They are calculated, and they've done an unprecedented thing here. They're prosecuting Trump for bookkeeping offenses, okay? Every time they come out and they say, historic, this is, no one's ever convicted Phil. For what, bookkeeping? You broke 234 years of historical precedent for bookkeeping offenses. Got it. And Trump paid his lawyer. That's it. And you didn't even consider immunity at all. You didn't. Now, this court you didn't have an evidentiary hearing on it, at least. Now, this court, they considered it and denied it. This court should grant leave to file the complaint. So saying, Supreme Court, give us permission to file this. Respectfully submitted, your friends, Andrew Bailey, Joshua M. Devine from Missouri. Now, here is the actual bill of complaint. So right now they're saying, can we have permission, please? If you give us permission, we're going to drop this on Alvin Bragg's desk, like 35 dozen donuts. Now, here's the table of contents, which we'll fast forward through. But they now bring an opening section telling us this is the nature of the action. Okay, it's not very complicated. They say Missouri is now seeking to invoke this court's original jurisdiction. All we have is a simple request. We want to stay, not even delete it, just stop the gag order from being in power. And we want the sentence to be stayed until at least until after the 2024 election. Not a big deal. This imposes no harm on the state of Missouri at all, but it ensures, or the state of New York, but it ensures that the voters from Missouri and us all across America will be able to make our voices heard in November without one state like Bragg and Tisch interfering with everybody. Saying New York's gag order and impending sentence against Trump, they interfere with his ability to freely travel. He can't campaign. And they also interfere with the rights of Americans and members of the Electoral College in general, not just us, but also the people who are in the process. They cannot hear Trump's political speech. Nothing is more destructive to the health of a democracy than distrust in the outcome of an election. Yeah, we're deep in that one right now. And yet New York has brought transparently weak charges for the transparent purpose of trying to impose political damage against Trump and trying to restrain his ability to campaign in advance of an election that's forecasted by the polls to be very close. And as the former governor and former attorney general of New York said 2 weeks ago, they confirmed if his name was not Donald Trump and if he wasn't running for president, I'm telling you that no case would have been brought. So this lawfare Supreme Court is poisonous to American democracy. The American people ought to be able to participate in a presidential election free from New York's interference, and any gag order and sentence should be stayed. Now, we know who the parties are. Let's get to the facts. Here's what we know. New York, through Alvin Bragg and Matthew Colangelo, Biden's number 3 at the DOJ before he went to prosecute Joe's political opponent, has brought criminal charges against Trump. Principally, they say that are for the purposes of assisting Joe Biden's campaign and inflicting damage against Trump. Andrew Cuomo even said this. He's the former governor. He said, if his name wasn't Trump, they wouldn't have even charged this guy. Obviously true. Bragg's charges are so weak that everybody across the board say it's ridiculous. They all are decrying the charges as a threat to the rule of law. Look at all these comments. This one came out from the St. Louis Dispatch. They say ridiculous. Here's one. David Rifkin Jr. violated due process. This guy says it's stupid. This guy says it's stupid too. Look at all these other people. You're dumb, Mercon. And these cases are ridiculous. And these charges are terrible. Now, Bragg nonetheless doesn't care. I don't care. He brought a criminal trial before Judge Mercon, who also violated the judicial ethical rules by donating to Joe Biden. Mercon literally donated to Stop Republicans. And now he's the judge who's presiding over the case against the top Republican. Now, Judge Mercon's daughter, Lauren, also has a political consulting company that attacks Trump and stands to gain financially from a conviction. And Judge Mercon refused to recuse himself. He knew that he donated to Trump and Trump's general election opponent, not Trump. And Judge Mercon also then gagged him, said, don't talk about my daughter. Okay, if she wants to raise a bunch of money for Democrats and she's getting some benefits from me prosecuting the opponent of her clients, leave us alone. Alvin Bragg charged Trump with bookkeeping offenses. And to get around the statute of limitations and to elevate those minor misdemeanor offenses into felonies, guess what? Bragg chose to charge Trump with bookkeeping offenses with the intent to commit another crime. But guess what? Those other crimes would have been misdemeanors. So it's weird. So he turns a misdemeanor into a felony by bootstrapping it to another misdemeanor. That's not another crime that's not even a felony. Pretty amazing how that works. But that's magic in New York. Bragg then refused to specifically identify what conduct other than the bookkeeping offenses Trump was even accused of committing. Didn't really matter. Jurors could pick a crime, any crime. They had a bunch of options here. Could have been this, could have been this, could have been this. Didn't even need unanimity to it because judge said so. In fact, here's what paragraph 24 says. Judge Mercon also instructed the jury that you don't even have to unanimously agree about what other conduct Trump allegedly committed. Now, the days before the jury was set to deliberate, the President of the United States, Biden, sponsored a press conference in front of the courthouse where his campaigners demanded the jury convict Trump. And that's when they brought out Robert De Niro, I think. And he's screaming at everybody over there. What the heck? What's wrong with you? Unlike the voters in November, the jurors had the power to vote him out once and for all. Now, the jury came out. Biden was sending his mob there to convict. And then all of a sudden, the jury issued guilty verdicts 2 days later. Now, before the trial, the judge also issued a gag order. That order is a prior restraint. It's a gag. It was presumptively unconstitutional. But the judge really needed it to stop because everybody was talking about his daughter and couldn't have Trump talking about it because it made him look totally partisan and biased, because he is. Now, among other things, it prohibited Trump from publicly challenging the credibility and the political motivation of the witnesses. Remember Michael Cohen, who already admitted to lying in federal court when he took his plea deal, or Stormy Daniels and all of her inconsistencies. We couldn't even talk about her documentary. Trump got none of the exculpatory evidence that may have been in there. And it prevented him from publicly drawing connections between the prosecution and between Trump's election opponent. Now, the order permitted Judge Merchan to literally jail him. Merchan then let the gag order stay on in place for a month after the trial as well. On June 25th, he amended the gag order, but refused to lift it. So Trump is still prohibited from criticizing the prosecutors. That includes Matthew Colangelo. Now, he can talk about Alvin Bragg, but he can't rip about Matthew Colangelo. He was formerly Joe Biden's third-ranking DOJ attorney. He resigned from the number 3 at the DOJ, the most powerful justice agency in the country, in the world, to go work for Alvin Bragg. Now, he did that just so he could go prosecute Trump, because that's what his entire basis for existence is. Now, sentencing was originally scheduled for July 11th, but as of July 2nd, it's been moved to September 18th. How come? Any sentence, even probation, is going to interfere with Trump's ability to freely campaign across the country. Yeah, so probation meaning that Trump doesn't have to report into custody unless he's on home detention or something like that. But here's the pattern of lawfare. They say, all right, this has been going on for a long time. Bragg's, this is to the Supreme Court of the United States from the state of Missouri. They say Bragg's criminal charges are only the latest example in an 8-year pattern of lawfare brought against Trump. A full account is far too lengthy to include here, so a brief snapshot is provided instead. And we've talked about this for a long time, but let's just hit the highlights here because it's good. Now, the lawfare began against Trump as early as 2016. Remember that? The recently released special counsel report by John Durham confirms that in 2016, the FBI criminally fabricated evidence to obtain a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. They spied on his campaign. No one's gone to jail for that. The FBI never had any actual evidence of that at all, just an investigation into the 2016 campaign. Instead, some FBI attorney named Kleinsmith committed a criminal offense by fabricating language in an email that was material to the FBI in obtaining a FISA surveillance order. Now, the investigation was launched by people. Did Kleinsmith go to jail? Did Kevin Kleinsmith go to jail? I remember that now that we mention it. Kevin Kleinsmith, lawyer. Let's see. No, yeah, I didn't think he did. So he was spared. Yeah, so just to be clear about this, I'm not sure if they're going to get to it or not, but my understanding is he didn't go to jail either. Ex-FBI lawyer spared prison for altering the Trump-Russia probe. Kevin Kleinsmith is the only person charged in the high-profile Durham investigation. Did he go to prison? No, he didn't. The only person charged in this was spared prison time for altering an email. Okay, this is a government FBI agent and an attorney, age 38, got a sentence 12-month probation, 400 hours community service. Steve Bannon's got 4 months. Peter Navarro's in prison. All right, these rotten FBI agents who are lawyers, who know better, who manipulate evidence, get probation. Nice, as we suspected. Now, the investigation was launched by people who had a predisposition to investigate Trump. For example, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were directly involved in matters. When Page messaged Strzok, the FBI lovers, Lisa said, "Trump's not going to become president, right, baby? Right?" Strzok replied, Peter Strzok, the guy who looks down at everybody, and blocked me on X because he is just a coward and a whiny wiener. Strzok replied, "No, he's not, Lisa. We'll stop it." Oh, how are you going to stop it? By what? Breaking the law? Oh, you did. Now, as soon as he obtained the opportunity to launch an investigation aimed at stopping Trump, Peter Strzok opened the Crossfire Hurricane investigation immediately, like a rigged hack. Now, following the FBI's criminal fabrication of evidence to spy on Trump, they gave that guy he's a regular commentator on MSNBC or something. Political opponents then harassed Trump. They ran a baseless conspiracy theory. They called Trump a Russian asset. Remember that? Special counsel Robert Mueller concluded in March 2019 that there was no evidence at all of any conspiracy at all. And all the Trump-Russia stuff is so dumb. It looks so dumb in hindsight, doesn't it? I mean, it looked dumb when we were watching it. But even in hindsight, how could these people even believe that for a second? They did it again with the 51 intelligence people saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. They all believed it or lied to us, like they lied to us about Joe Biden's dementia. But regardless, the very existence of the special counsel investigation interfered with Trump's ability to exercise his executive authority. Justice Scalia already warned about this. Says, do not invite that. What Justice Jackson described as picking the man and then searching the law books or putting investigators to work to pin an offense on him, right? Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. I'll find you anything for that guy. So then in 2020, the FBI did it again. They tried to rig 2016. They screwed that up. They're like, not going to let this happen again. Trump won, not going to do it again. So the FBI intervened. For a year, the FBI had the Hunter Biden laptop in its possession, and it knew a story was about to be written about the contents. A story that would be so bad for Joe they had to do something. So the FBI, quote, badgered platforms to adopt various policies to censor the, quote, hacked materials in order to suppress the story. The lawfare went on all over the place. Several states relied on off-the-wall novel theory after that, right? So the FBI was in there censoring people. Then the states came back out, and we had Crazy Eyes Griswold and Jenna Bellows from Maine and Jocelyn Benson and all these secretaries of state who are cheaters, man. They tried to throw Trump off the ballot. Then the Supreme Court had to come back in and say, hey, Crazy Eyes, come on, put some glasses on. Similarly, one prosecutor in Georgia has tried to use racketeering laws in an unprecedented way to go after Trump. And the Georgia Court of Appeals had to put that case on pause. Now, New York's actions continue this pattern of lawfare. Indeed, Bragg is not the only official in New York who has targeted Trump. The New York Attorney General, Tish James, who takes her shoes off, stinking up the entire building, in court, brought a case against Trump to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars and saying he needed to be fined for all of that. And it didn't stop there. Alvin Bragg was previously involved in more than 100 cases against Trump. He campaigned on a promise to prosecute Trump. He recruited Colangelo to come in and prosecute Trump. And then when Bragg came in, he resurrected this entire case. His predecessor sent this case to the grave because he had concerns about it. And the facts surrounding this indictment have already been known for years, okay? That's why Bragg had to resurrect it. Michael Cohen, President Trump's disgraced lawyer, he already pleaded guilty over 5 years ago to charges based on these same facts. And by 2019, federal prosecutors determined that no additional people could be charged other than Cohen. Everyone declined to prosecute Trump because he didn't do anything wrong. It was not until after President Trump announced he was running for president again that Alvin Bragg got the phone call. Said, you got to do something about this, my man. The timing and the basis for Bragg's prosecution show political motivation. The facts at the center of the case have not changed at all since 2018. No new witnesses have emerged, and the filing of this indictment is very suspicious, especially in light of the fact that Joe Biden has encouraged the prosecution of Trump. For example, we've seen it before. After the FBI and the DOJ declined to prosecute Trump for more than a year, Biden's sitting around, he's saying, what the heck? The New York Times got a leak from the Biden White House. Someone said that Trump, quote, should be prosecuted. And suddenly, around the same time, Joe Biden, who is the leader of the Justice Department, he's now saying, prosecute Trump. They do. After this new directive leaked from the White House, and 1 month after Trump announced he was running for president, Alvin Bragg hired Colangelo. Colangelo got the notice. Hey, anybody know any good prosecutors who are good against prosecuting Trump? Colangelo's already done it. Colangelo has a history of taking on Trump and the family business. That's why he was hired. And so in order to make this work, they had to elevate a misdemeanor. It was a time-barred, statute of limitations prohibited bookkeeping offense. They had to elevate it into a felony. Bragg had to charge Trump with that other subsection. Now, the prosecution advanced some bizarre theory saying that Trump violated another federal election campaign law. But that's strange because federal prosecutors didn't charge him with that. Now, despite New York's attempt to enforce a statute, the New York State, Attorney General Garland took no action to intervene. So the DOJ was not protecting their own jurisdiction. We also see that unredacted FEC documents show the DOJ had no issues intervening in other cases. But when Bragg tried to enforce federal law that the DOJ had already reviewed and determined Trump did not violate any crime, the department just sat on their hands. Right? You see in the movies when the feds come in, like, this is our case. Get out of here. The cop's like, no, it's our case. Why do the feds always come in here? And they investigate it anyways, and they usually solve the case or whatever. Here, DOJ just said, well, we know you're probably not supposed to be prosecuting that, but go ahead because we want you to. So they say this is irreparable harm, all right? It's harming Missourians and the rest of us. They say Trump's conviction is very likely to be overturned on appeal. They're already backpedaling on it since the immunity decision came out. But by then, the constraints that New York has already imposed will already have had their full effect. Missouri has a strong and judicially enforceable interest in its citizens being able to hear Trump's speech. And we cannot hear him if he's gagged. Unlike most other states, Missouri does not have a pledge law requiring electors to vote for a certain candidate. So although Missouri electors typically cast their electoral votes for the candidate representing the same party, the electors are free to exercise their discretion. So they need to be able to hear from Trump. Now, New York has interfered with that. And Missouri electors have a protectable interest in this information. Because Missouri electors are state officials, Missouri has the ability to sue on their behalf. So don't try to come in here and say we don't have any standing on this. We are filing literally for people who have their free speech rights impacted, and they need to have those so that they can go cast their votes accordingly. Now, there is currently a scheduled Trump campaign event in Missouri, so we've got standing here too. But under the current gag order, when Trump shows up here, he's not going to be able to say what he wants to say. Even if the Trump campaign could not visit Missouri, we have a lot of other connections to this issue. This is why Missouri has standing. Social media, television, it all prevents Trump from speaking the truth inside our state. And so Missouri electors will be chosen by the people of Missouri, and so we can sue. And you are interfering with our rights. Now here, the associational aim of millions of Missourians is to elect Trump to the presidency. He's currently leading the Republican Party, and New York's actions directly interfere with that claim. And so here are our various counts. Count 1, Alvin Bragg, state of New York, and all the Democrats there say that you are now interfering with the presidential election in the other states. For over 200 years, this court, the Supreme Court, has consistently held that states cannot interfere with or impede or burden legitimate federal elections. Supreme Court, you decided that back in 1819. And presidential electors are free in our state. Now, New York's gag order impedes the ability of them in doing their jobs. It's an informational injury. And this is one of the most recognized, most basic political rights. We don't have information. So how can we participate in our so-called democracy? Missouri's electors will be chosen in November, and several of the prospective electors have even filed affidavits. They say, hey, We've got concerns, okay? We can't hear from Trump. The gag is preventing us from doing our jobs. We have a direct, concrete harm. And New York doesn't have any authority under the Constitution to do this. They're interfering with our constitutional obligations here. Now, New York has, of course, they say, yeah, it's true. They have the ability to conduct their own criminal proceedings, but the timing of these proceedings must not interfere with the presidency, and there's no substantial justification for them to do this here. And so this court has the obligation to give us an order staying New York from using its coercive authority to stop Trump from campaigning in the months leading up to the election. Don't bog him down in here. Let him get out there and speak. This is also a violation of the Purcell Doctrine. They say, you know, listen, Supreme Court, remember, court orders that are affecting elections, especially conflicting orders, can themselves result in voter confusion and consequent incentive to remain away from the polls. So the doctrine here is, you know, hey, orders like this that are conflicting, that like, you know, a candidate should be able to speak about something because it's an election, so he kind of needs that, but you're going to gag him because it's harmful to your case or whatever. So those are conflicting. So such orders, if they're conflicting like that in the middle of an election, are pretty confusing to people. And so those are generally prohibited in the months leading up to an election, but Bragg and the prosecutors don't care. So there is no doubt that New York's actions greatly affect voters and the confusion of them. And so publications like the New York Times have run articles asking many questions about the effects of this. Whether Trump can even run for president now? Is he even allowed to be in this case since he's a convicted felon? So some people might say, well, he's a convicted felon, I guess he can't run. Or he's got a gag order on him, so he can't run. Now, questions in the press also abound how a sentence and gag order would affect the executive authority. And there's no reason why this type of principle shouldn't apply here. So we ask that the Supreme Court, stop New York. Make them stop using their coercive authority to prevent Trump from campaigning. And then lastly, count 3, they say citizens of Missouri and us too, we have a well-established right to receive information and ideas. Not only Trump speaking it, but the right to receive it. This right is at its apex, at its climax, at the highest point in the context of a presidential campaign. After all, it is the only through free debate and the free exchange of ideas that the government remains responsive to the will of the people. That's why we have the First Amendment, and it's the first, not the 7th or 8th. It's the oil that lubricates the entire society. And the reason why it's important to have free debate and free exchange is so we have good policy. But Democrats have terrible policy, and so do a lot of Republicans, to be fair. So they'd rather limit our debate and our free exchange of ideas, lest we know that they're incompetent. So New York's gag order, says Missouri, is now impeding, and the impending sentence interfere with the ability of others to receive Trump's speech. Now, where governmental action interferes with speech indirectly, that might be okay, so long as there's not a more neutral, so long as it's neutral. But nothing in this prosecution is neutral at all. Trump was specifically targeted for the purpose of trying to impose political damage. There is no reason for New York to impose a gag order and a sentence now, rather than waiting and permitting the presidential election to proceed as intended. And so we now ask, under Section 2 of Article 3 and the U.S. Code, to stop New York from gagging and limiting Trump's campaign. And so they say, Supreme Court, with all this being said, we now respectfully ask that the Supreme Court step in here and declare that New York's existing and impending restrictions on Trump's ability to campaign unlawfully interfere with the election. So come out and say this is election interference. And while you're doing that, stop, stay, or enjoin any gag order, any sentencing order, or any other order, or exercise of coercive authority that would limit or interfere with Trump's ability to freely campaign, and keep that injunction in place until at least after the November election, and grant any other relief as deemed appropriate and proper. Signed by Andrew Bailey and Joshua Devine from the Attorney General's office there in Missouri. And so, nice filing. We've got a lot of truth there. We know why this was brought. Now, Bragg's response, of course, will be something to the effect that, no, all we're doing is just enforcing the law, right? We have an independent interest in pursuing justice in our state. And if it has a spillover effect, it has nothing to do with any, there's an election right now? Well, we're not even worried about that. We're only worried about justice. And so the big question, of course, is going to be whether or not the Supreme Court will ultimately accept this and consider the bill of a complaint. But a very nice filing. And we now see that this case is kind of ripe for this complaint. One of my criticisms might have been, well, why didn't they file this a long time ago when the gag order originally came into place? And at that moment, the trial was still ongoing. Now the trial is clearly over. And so they're saying, why does the gag still need to be in place? Why? Pending sentencing? And so they just postponed sentencing, right? A follow-up to this would be they also postponed sentencing. So the gag theoretically should have been lifted at least on July 11th when Trump got sentenced. Okay, now he's sentenced. So now the conviction hits and he gets his penalty. But now they postponed it to September. So he continues to be gagged. What if they postpone it again? We're just going to have this continual limiting of his free speech while the judge indefinitely postpones the sentencing in the middle of an election? No. Hopefully, this is something that SCOTUS rectifies. And it would be very nice if a bunch of other states joined in on this with Missouri. We're looking at Texas and some of the other states to see if they jump in. We're not getting anything from Arizona. Sorry about that. It's just true because we have incompetence in charge here. But Andrew Bailey showed up over on the Dana show. Dana is over at the Dana Loesch show, and she was speaking with Andrew Bailey, the man himself behind the filing. Here is what he said.
48 hours with the Democrat Party.
Oh my gosh, they're in an infinitely regressive death spiral. I mean, it's absolutely, it would be comedic if it wasn't injecting poison into the Democratic election process and depriving Missourians and citizens of every state the right to actually engage in a meaningful way in a national election in the heat of a campaign in the most consequential presidential election in this nation's history. Let's start with this idea that Biden shouldn't be on the ticket. The rest of us knew that months ago. They should have pulled him before these states had their primaries and their caucuses. Now they're wanting to play a shell game. Again, that undermines the integrity of the election process. Why did we have primaries and caucuses if they're going to play a shell game and swap somebody out for an unknown and then deny us of our meaningful voice? But then you see Joe Biden reacting to the immunity decision from the United States Supreme Court. And has anyone told this guy that he probably missed the early bird special and they're out of tapioca pudding because he was out doing a press conference at 5 p.m. And what a press conference it was. 4 minutes and 59 seconds. No questions from the media. This guy should be popping champagne. This means that he can't be prosecuted for aiding and abetting in human trafficking and fentanyl distribution from the chaos at our southern border. This benefits him. I mean, this is absolute insanity. And I absolutely think that he should not be the president of the United States, but the Democrats shouldn't be allowed to swap him out now. That's totally unfair.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's what Clyburn was talking about, too, a mini primary. Because if they do what you're talking about, they're cutting all the delegates out of the equation. And then it's just, the power players within the Democrat Party that are deciding who the substitute's going to be. And that scares me too, because it's all the people who have been leading these witch hunts this entire time. Let me segue into the New York case, because Missouri v. New York lawsuit filed today. And this has to do with the jurisdiction of this case. So for the people who, because I know that there's so many things Democrats have been throwing at the former president, for the people who may need a recap, this is that suit where they tried to straw man up something to charge him with to take it out of state court and make it a federal court issue. And that's what you're challenging.
Yeah, that's right. Look, this lawfare against President Trump, again, it's undermining the integrity of the democratic process. They're supposed to be the sacred guardians of our democracy, and yet what they're doing is essentially denying people the ability to engage in a presidential election. Missouri is a sovereign state with a sovereign interest in participating in a national election on equal footing with every other state, and we can't let a rogue prosecutor and a collusive judiciary in the state of New York and their communist witch hunt persecution. It's not even a prosecution, it's a persecution of President Trump that takes him off the campaign trail and silences him. That's depriving Missourians and anybody else access to a presidential candidate in the heat of a campaign. It's unconstitutional to allow one state to deprive other states the ability to participate in a meaningful way in that election. That's why we filed suit. And you're right. Article 3, Section 2 of the United States Constitution gives original jurisdiction to the Supreme Court. It's Missouri v. New York. Game on.
All right. So Andrew Bailey on The Dana Show. You can follow her show over at Dana Loesch Radio. And a great guest and a great conversation about what's happening there as Missouri fights to protect the rights of its citizens. And hopefully other states will follow, because what the Democrats are doing is clearly election interference. They're rigging 2024 right now. Don't have to wait until after election night to see more water main breaks and big slews of ballots being dropped off in wheelbarrows. It's happening right now. Missouri's digging into it. Hopefully other states join. We're going to continue to cover, and we hope you join us as we do. Thank you so much for subscribing, my friends, to our channel, wherever it is you're watching this. And we'd love it if you invited someone you know or love to come check the channel out as well. We've got a lot of coverage coming up on this case and much more. So we'll look forward to seeing you back over here and on the next video, which is coming up. It's all about Merrick Garland because he's getting sued as well. We'll see you over there and back here on the next one. But we're live. So we're jumping right into our next segment, my friends, before we see what you have to say about all this madness. But this one is from Republicans. House Republicans sue Merrick Garland, saying, "We want those Biden audio tapes. You've not given it to us, and now there will be some consequences," asking the judges, the courts, to come in and rectify this problem between the two branches. Congress issued a subpoena. They said, "Garland, you have to give us this stuff. We know other people are already in prison for refusing congressional subpoenas like Bannon and Navarro. And so why can Garland get away with it?" They're asking the courts to step in, order Garland to hand over those audio tapes because Joe Biden apparently is in a way on them, and we can't wait to see what they sound like. So Mike Johnson is going to explain to us why they're going this route. Why are they pursuing this? Anna Paulina Luna also has a plan in place. And then we'll jump into the filing that was submitted in the D.C. Circuit Court. It's a lawsuit against the DOJ from House Republicans. So it's one branch suing another branch. It's a big deal. And this is Karine coming out explaining that Joe Biden takes naps. And probably a lot of naps. Doesn't really want to talk about it. Byron will round out this segment explaining this is nothing new here. We know how demented Joe is. So what is the House doing? What are the Republicans up to? We have Mike Johnson, the Speaker, explaining the process during a press briefing with the media in the aftermath of the debate. This was on June 28th. And so we're all trying to figure out how demented is Joe really. Here is what Mike Johnson says about the investigation in the battle with Merrick Garland.
Representative Luna has offered up a resolution to enforce inherent contempt against the Attorney General. Do you plan to bring that to a vote? And do you think that's the best avenue to get the tapes from Special Counsel for his investigation?
Well, all the House Republicans are in 100% agreement that we have to be aggressive in enforcing the subpoenas of the House. This is about our Article 1 authority under the Constitution, and we cannot allow the executive branch to defy that. But Merrick Garland has refused to turn over something that we are entitled to receive. Because we're pursuing our oversight responsibility under the Constitution, we have to ensure that the transcript that we've been provided of Special Counsel Hur's investigation of President Biden, or his lengthy examination and questioning of President Biden, we have to make sure the transcript matches the audio tape. That is a very reasonable thing and a necessary thing for the House and its investigatory authority to do. The Attorney General is not turning it over. He does not have the authority to decide whether that tape is turned over to the House.
Yeah, it's amazing. He gets to decide, well, Bannon goes to prison, Navarro goes to prison for not following a congressional subpoena, but not us. Because of what? Privilege? Because executive privilege, which is exactly what Trump was invoking on behalf of Bannon and Navarro. So what's the difference? There isn't one.
He's the Attorney General. This is a special counsel proceeding. The special counsel, by definition and necessity, works outside the scope of the Department of Justice. He doesn't get to make that call. I called the Attorney General myself And we had a conversation about this.
What'd he
and I
say?
said, sir, you have to turn this over. He refuses to do so. The White House, as he's made public and said publicly, has commanded him, the President of the United States, has told the Attorney General not to turn over the tape. I think after last night's debate, I think we all understand very clearly why that is. He will very likely sound exactly on that tape as he did on the stage last night.
Terrible.
And that's embarrassing to the President. We're sorry about that.
Yeah.
We're not trying to embarrass the President. We're trying to get down to the facts. So, that being said, we're going to be as aggressive as you can. We use every tool in our arsenal to make sure that the evidence that the House is entitled to is turned over. So we are going to court on Monday. We're filing a lawsuit. We are going to go pursue and execute upon that subpoena. And we're going to get the courts, the third branch, to enforce the executive branch to turn over the tapes to the legislative branch. It's an exercise in civics, and we'll be pursuing
So
it.
the court, you're going to go through the court system and not attempt inherent contempt.
Well,
Is that your plan?
look, I think the easiest way, the best way, is to allow the third branch to resolve this dispute between the executive and the legislative branch. There may be other avenues that we can pursue, and we're looking into all that, but we're not committed to anything yet. What Anna Paulina Luna and I and all House Republicans agree upon is that we've got to use every tool in the toolbox here, so to speak, because this is very, very serious, a serious matter for the country, and we're going to do our duty here.
All right, it is a serious matter for the country, and hopefully they do their duty. But what he was mentioning there was more from Anna Paulina Luna, who was also hinting that they were going to move forward with inherent contempt. So we know that the vote was already completed on actual contempt, but this is a different version. So Anna Paulina Luna dropped this a few days ago. Says, breaking news, the vote for inherent contempt against Attorney General Merrick Garland will be brought to the floor this upcoming session week with full support from Speaker Mike Johnson. We're wondering when that's going to be because we got the holiday tomorrow. Is it going to be Friday? This version of inherent contempt will become standard practice for those who seek to undermine Congress as an equal branch of government. It is with great honor and privilege that my colleagues helped us all accomplish this and restore balance to the branches of government. Thank you, Mike Johnson, Representatives Rich McCormick, Mark Alford, Harriet Hageman, who threw out Liz Cheney on her butt, Dan Crenshaw, Max Miller, Russell Fry, Derek Van Orden, Ben Klein, and Tim Burchett. Says Garland must answer for his blatant disrespect of Congress and the rule of law. Our founding fathers would not have tolerated the behavior exhibited by Merrick Garland, the DOJ, and the president. This tool was established knowing that one day Congress might need to check the other branches of government and check their power. And so that's from Representative Anna Paulina Luna. You know what she looks like right there. She is a representative. And this is from her personal account saying that they're going to be digging into that. So Anna Paulina Luna sharing that one. Now, this is what the actual lawsuit looks like. House Republicans suing Merrick Garland. You can see Committee on the Judiciary, United States House of Representatives versus Merrick Garland in the District of Columbia. You know these courts. This is their complaint saying, all right, Merrick, you're in big trouble there, buddy boy. Here's the background. We now bring this from the Judiciary Committee of the United States Congress, House of Representatives. We're bringing this civil action against Merrick Garland, the Attorney General. Why? Because we sent him a duly authorized, issued, and served subpoena. And accordingly, we allege the following. Congress says, all right, look, this dispute is about a frivolous assertion of executive privilege. All right, as part of its oversight into the DOJ and into Joe Biden, we have an impeachment inquiry that's still being processed. The Judiciary Committee issued a subpoena to Merrick Garland. We want records from Robert Hur's investigation of Joe Biden's classified documents. And among other things, we seek a bunch of material. We want interviews with Joe Biden and Mark Zwanitzer, the ghostwriter of his memoir. Now, while the DOJ did give us transcripts of those interviews, and they did release some of the transcripts publicly, Garland has refused to produce the audio recordings of the interviews. Instead, he's asked that Garland tells Biden, you should exert executive privilege over those recordings. And guess what? Joe Biden did. You know who else invoked executive privilege? Oh yeah, Donald Trump over Bannon and Navarro. And They got charged. They got sent to prison. So hopefully Garland's packing his bags. Now, audio recordings are better evidence than transcripts of what happened during the interviews. And for example, as we know, audio recordings contain verbal and nonverbal context that's missing from a cold written transcript. That verbal and nonverbal context is quite important here because Robert Hur relied on the way that Biden comported himself during the interview and said specifically, he's a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, and so we can't prosecute him. Ultimately recommended no charges. Now, the audio recordings are the best evidence. The committee needs those recordings. He and White House lawyers have disputed this, and they say we shouldn't have them. But this is Biden attempting to shield himself. Any privilege that could conceivably apply to Biden's interview was waived. They have no more privilege. They released a transcript of the whole thing. And they said that was the evidence. And so the better evidence would be the audio. Any privilege that could conceivably apply to special counsel's interview with Zwanitzer was also waived when they produced a transcript of that interview as well. Now, additionally, the heart of the privilege claim, remember the DOJ came back out and they said, oh no, we can't release the audio because if we release the audio, then other people will be less likely to cooperate. They say, well, that's ridiculous. You guys released the transcripts. So it doesn't make any sense. Like they would work with you if they knew the transcripts would come out, but not the audio. Well, I mean, if everybody can read it, that's okay. But if they hear it, then I'm not talking to you. If the potential for disclosure would chill cooperation, it would be the transcript, okay, which the DOJ voluntarily disclosed. So don't give us that. Now, for the reasons and other reasons set forth, Biden's invocation of executive privilege lacks any basis. And so we now ask this court to overrule their privilege and order that Merrick Garland produce the audio of Biden to the committee. Now, we know that we've got jurisdiction over this because you're DC. All this is happening in DC. The parties here are the House of Representatives Judiciary Committee and Merrick Garland. They say, here's the story. Article 1 of the Constitution grants us authority to do our investigations. We've done it for a long time. The Supreme Court has said that we have the power of inquiry and we can enforce that. The judiciary is doing that. We have a lot of power to do all sorts of stuff. We're a standing committee. We've got general oversight responsibilities. House rules say we can do all sorts of stuff. Now, separate from Congress's legislative authority, we also have impeachment authority. So the House is different than Congress. Congress is both bodies. The House has certain powers. The Senate has other powers. And so our committee's jurisdiction also includes impeachment. On September, Kev McCarthy directed the committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. We've done that. And we are continuing our oversight. So on November 2nd, if we rewind the clock back to 2022, remember that Joe Biden's personal counsel, his private lawyers, discovered boxes containing classified markings. Interesting, after Trump. The boxes were retrieved by the National Archives. Many items had top secret level codes on them. The National Archives then told the DOJ and the ODNI about the discovery. Then Garland assigned John Lausch to investigate the matter. On December 20th, personal counsel for Joe Biden again discovered other classified documents. Weird. 2 separate locations in the garage of his Wilmington and Delaware home. So 2 other houses. Lausch, the U.S. attorney, was notified of the discovery. Then they found another document. This time was in a notebook located in the basement. So the personal lawyer just keeps finding classified documents all over the place. Did his house get raided by the FBI? Did they go through Hunter Biden's bedroom and take pictures of his bedroom like they did for Byron? No, they didn't. Lausch was notified the next day. The FBI then came. So after the private attorneys probably shredded a bunch of documents, then the FBI came in. Shortly thereafter, then, an attorney from the White House provided the FBI with the notebook. Then Merrick Garland appointed Robert Hur, authorized Hur to continue the Lausch investigation after they cleaned everything up. Then he was embodied with the responsibility to do the investigation. Now, during the Hur investigation, FBI agents found additional classified documents, even more, in Biden's home, within his Senate papers at the University of Delaware. This dude's got documents all over the place. So special counsel did 173 interviews, 147 witnesses. Biden was included, many others, including the ghostwriter. They also listened to audio recordings that Zwanitzer made when he was interviewing Joe for the ghostwriting. Zwanitzer had deleted the audio recordings, which was a destruction of evidence, because the recordings had significant evidentiary value. Did you delete that because you knew they were important? Yes, I did. Oops. They recovered them. Investigators recovered them because he doesn't know how to wipe his hard drives like Hillary's people did. Indeed, the special counsel stated that there is unique evidentiary value in a subject's own voice captured on audio. So glad they recovered those. Now, during a recorded interview with the ghostwriter, the president, who just left the vice president's office, said, I just found all that classified stuff downstairs, quote. Hur said, yeah, that statement was probably in reference to the classified documents. So we know that Joe Biden disclosed classified information to the ghostwriter many times. Specifically, he knew it. He knew he had it and disclosed it intentionally. Now, Robert Hur's report about the investigation was publicly released. He said, well, based on what we determined here, no criminal charges were warranted because they can't determine that the president was acting willfully. He was just an elderly old man. He reached this determination because he analyzed how Joe Biden presented himself and how he appeared. He said when he testified, he did take into account not just the words from the transcript, but the entire manner in living color in real time and how he presented himself. And he wrote in his report that Joe Biden is a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. Didn't even remember when he was vice president. Forgot when his term began and ended. Said no reasonable juror would ever support a conviction. And I mean, honestly, Robert Hur was completely vindicated on the debate stage. Everybody goes, that's the president? I mean, we knew that was going to be his capability since the beginning because we've been following him for years now. But yeah, Robert Hur confirmed, right? The guy's gone. So President Biden has disputed the interpretation. He says, no, I'm totally competent, just like he's saying today. 3 days before the report was released, Biden's attorney sent a letter to the special counsel attacking the language therein. The letter says his memory wasn't hazy, okay? Don't talk about his memory. Said, my memory's fine. And then Joe Biden came out and tried that emergency press conference after the report was released. Remember that? And basically couldn't speak then. Throughout Congress, they say, we have been trying to get this material. Our oversight's very important. We are trying to conduct oversight of Jack Smith's investigation, wondering whether the raid of Mar-a-Lago was handled appropriately. On January 13th, the day after Garland appointed the special counsel, there was also some inquiry about Joe Biden's documents. And after the special counsel's report, the committee ramped up its investigation. The committee here, along with two other committees, requested more information from Jack Smith and Robert Hur. In fact, we asked for all of this. Robert Hur's interviews, the video and audio, communications with Zwanitzer, the ghostwriter, documents identified as A9 and A10, which are about Ukraine, and a bunch of other materials about the collection of the documents. Now, the DOJ neither offered a time frame, and they're not expected to produce any of the materials. And so what happened? We move forward. On February 27th, the committee issued a subpoena. We sent a subpoena to Garland. We said, hey, okay, listen, enough already. The committee explained that the subpoena is required. It specifically required Garland to give us the information, notified him that if you think there's privilege, then write a privilege log. Let us know what's privileged. On March 7th, the DOJ provided its initial response. They said that we're going to supplement our report. Problem is, there's nothing in the report. They produced 6 communications responsive to paragraph 4, and they said you could come look at 2 classified documents in camera, but we're not going to give you the materials. The DOJ gave us a spate of vague reasons. They say, oh, we need more time. We're doing classification review. We're doing confidentiality review. We're doing privacy interest review, blah, blah, blah. And our internal deliberations are all now subject to other privileges and executive branch confidentiality interests. There it is. So by March 9th, the committee still hadn't gotten anything. Our deadline was coming up. On March 12th, a little more than 2 hours before our hearing with Robert Hur, they produced 2 redacted transcripts of Hur's report and the interviews to the committee. So 2 hours before they got the transcripts. Now, before the committee received the transcripts, they'd already been given to reporters. The DOJ did not give any audio recordings, though, so they just turned over the transcripts, but no audio. During the hearing, committee members questioned the special counsel. At the hearing, he said, well, the need to show my work was really strong here, okay? The decision was based on not only the words in the cold record, but also the interview. The committee once again extended the deadline for a complete production of records. So they say, okay, you don't have it now. We'll give you some more time. The DOJ, though, then produced another set of transcripts. They said, they made it clear, we are not going to give you the audio. So stop asking for it. The DOJ said that the refusal to give you the audio is because it's a political request and it's cumulative. We already gave you the transcripts. We don't have to give you both. They said also, if we give you the audio, voluntary witness cooperation is going to be tarnished, and that the president had decided not to exert executive privilege over the report or the transcript. But we're not going to give you the audio. On April 15th, the Oversight Committee made one final attempt. We sent the subpoena a letter saying, look, here's why we asked for this. The DOJ, don't tell us you've got privilege, okay? You already waived that when you released the transcripts. The audio is important. Vocal tone, pace, inflections, verbal nuances, idiosyncrasies. We need to know all about it. Now, the day of the deadline, the DOJ responded on Merrick Garland's behalf. They wrote a letter back saying, we're not giving you your records. Stop bothering us. In short, the DOJ quibbled with Congress. Why do you even need this? We've already given you sufficient know why. We've already told you enough, so you know why the special counsel made the decision. So then they closed the investigation. They refused to produce the audio. And even though the DOJ had already decided not to exert executive privilege over the transcripts, it still was not going to give us the audio. The DOJ relied on the tone. The special counsel relied on the inflections. He relied on the idiosyncrasies, and so we need that too. And executive privilege is not appropriate. We had a public business meeting, and we considered whether to hold Merrick Garland in contempt. As of the early morning on May 16th, Attorney General Garland had not asserted any privilege. However, less than 2 hours before the meeting, the committee got a letter. So they were going to vote on holding Garland in contempt. The DOJ said that morning that Biden was invoking executive privilege. Weird, because Bannon's in prison for that. DOJ also included a copy of the Attorney General's letter the previous day. Among Attorney General's reasons for privilege, Garland is now saying, yes, invoke it, and Joe Biden did. So then we asked, well, okay, you're invoking privilege, but your privilege has been waived because you already released the transcript, so you have no privilege. So where is the audio? We reject your privilege claim, right? Just like Liz Cheney did to Trump's claim. Okay, committee just did exactly what the J6 committee did. Your privilege is rejected. Give us the materials. Show up and testify. The committee's report noted that Biden had waived his privilege, and while the department could have taken steps to protect the confidentiality of the transcripts, it didn't. The committee found the privilege claim was not timely and invalid, and Garland didn't assert any of it. So finally, even if the privilege claim had been timely and valid, it had been overcome because the audio recordings were necessary, and the DOJ did it too. And so the House ultimately found him in contempt of Congress. They voted 216 to 207. The full House, not Liz Cheney's fake committee that was illegally constituted. When it voted, the House had the committee's report, and we reviewed all of the information inside. We informed, on June 14th, the DOJ informed Mike Johnson, we're not going to actually bring this. So even though Congress has charged Merrick Garland with contempt, the DOJ is not going to enforce it. They informed the House that we're not going to prosecute ourselves, okay? We're only going to prosecute Trumpers. We're only prosecuting Bannon and Navarro and the J6ers, not when we violate a congressional subpoena. Now, Speaker Johnson certified the committee's report to Matthew Graves. And on June 26, Attorney General Garland, in the last-ditch attempt to find a way to resolve this, before the committee filed this complaint. To resolve it before they filed the complaint. However, during their conversation, Garland indicated the matter was out of his hands. I can't do anything, okay? Garland has received a direct order from President Biden. Don't release the audio. Merrick Garland says Joe Biden does not want that audio out. We know why. When the Speaker's office reached out to the White House to find a solution, the White House said, no, not going anywhere. So the same day, the BLAG, the Bipartisan Legal Advisory Group, which is authorized by the House to speak on litigation, said we should initiate this suit. And so we're now doing that. We need this audio. We don't need the cold transcript. Even Robert Hur's reports and conclusions hinged on the audio. He said that himself. And an audio recording will include all the words, not the edited transcript where they're taking out all the marbles in Joe Biden's mouth. The audio recordings are critical so that we know what to do. We're Congress. It's going to shed light on whether the president willfully retained the classified documents, which bears directly on our impeachment inquiry. And so a transcript is not a carbon copy of an oral interview, and therefore it's undeniably inferior evidence. So a transcript is bad. We need tone, and a transcript's just not going to do it. The DOJ even acknowledges this. They say audio recordings have distinct features. That's why we record the interviews. Transcripts can't capture emphasis and a lot of things. There's also paralinguistic cues. Things like, all of those are in there. Heightened volume, faster pacing, more fluent speech. Is it more narrative? Are you hemming and hawing? Do you sound nervous? Relying solely on transcripts is not good enough. They can't capture the nonverbal cues. For example, special counsel noted that Zwanitzer's interviews with Biden, at times he would struggle or he would strain at times. So you can't communicate that in a transcript. Transcripts fail to capture the nuance. And there might also be discrepancies, okay? These are not hypothetical. Despite DOJ's assertions that it has produced unedited transcripts, it has admitted that they are edited. The interview transcripts, is what they said, are accurate transcriptions of the words of the interview contained in the audio recording, except for minor instances such as the use of filler words. So they deleted the ums or the uhs when speaking that are not always reflected on the transcripts, or when words may have been repeated when spoken, like and no, but sometimes was only listed a single time in the transcript. So how many times did he say those things? Who knows? DOJ has stated that the transcripts here sometimes indicate that sometimes the audio recording words are indiscernible. What are the words? Is Joe Biden saying, Truman International the pressure? What the hell did you just say? But the Biden administration has claimed before that spoken words were indiscernible when they were not. For example, in April, Biden gave a speech, which was recorded, where he can be seen and heard reading a teleprompter, and he was instructing to pause during the speech. He says, imagine what we could do next. 4 more years. Pause. One example showing that transcripts don't actually capture all the words actually spoken, including President Biden's, and other examples abound. So the interviews are absolutely relevant. We're investigating criminal charges against Joe. And to determine whether criminal charges should be brought, we should know the mental state of the president and whether there was willfulness. Biden himself, when he was being interviewed Robert Hur said he would present himself as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with poor memory. And that led to the ultimate conclusion. So we need to hear that. They noted that he was also unable to remember a bunch of stuff during the interview, that his memory appeared hazy. These were examples of significant limitations of Biden's brain. He couldn't even recognize the documents that they recovered. And the special counsel concluded that Biden's staff unwittingly took an envelope out and moved it. And so Biden didn't have any idea. The staff did it, so couldn't charge him. And he's got a very sympathetic demeanor, so it's hard to determine his criminal intent. Now, as these examples show, the audio recording will give us a much more complete picture about how bad the transcripts are. The verbal nuances were used by the special counsel to reach his conclusion, and so we need to do the same. Now, not everyone even agrees with the special counsel. A White House lawyer rebuts them too. And so now, since there's a bunch of stuff that's open to interpretation, the White House disagrees with Robert Hur, we need to get to the bottom of it. They say one thing happened over here. Special counsel says another thing happened here. And now there's a different special counsel that's prosecuting Trump. And the cold transcript is not good enough. So the committee is doing our oversight. And in order to fairly do our analysis, we need to have a full understanding of what took place. They're now talking about the ghostwriter a bunch. And so once we get this, it will then inform our decisions. The committee might consider reauthorizing, for example, an independent statute to determine what to do about these problematic special counsels. What type of legislative reforms are appropriate? And we also might impeach Joe Biden, which I really hope they don't, because he's the best thing that the Republicans have right now. Other than Trump, the special counsel's report indicates that at least 2 classified documents were retained by Joe. It included a handwritten note that said, "Get a copy of this conversation from my records, please." Biden had tons of classified information about the time from Ukraine when old Hunter sat on the board. The committee needs to know if Biden took classified information to benefit his family, probably, and the audio recordings will help shed light on that. We still need to know whether he had strong motivations to take this classified material so he could write his book. He got $8 million for that book. Listening to the recordings will help us make that determination. And so executive privilege and the claim of exerting it are totally unavailable. The transcripts have already been released. They sent it to the news media. So there's nothing now left to privilege. And executive privilege was waived before. It was not even invoked timely. We sent in a bunch of deadlines. They didn't comply with it. And so the information sought by the committee does not implicate any presidential decision-making. It doesn't involve communications. It doesn't involve national security. There's no presidential advisors. This is a criminal investigation. So executive privilege doesn't apply. The committee seeks information related to this, and the Attorney General not giving it to us is a problem. They've already released the transcripts. There is not going to be a chilling effect to any of this. And so the impact has been grossly overstated. So the committee now has a constitutional obligation to get these records out. We've already made reasonable accommodations. There's no lawful basis for Garland to preclude us from having this. And so we now ask you, the D.C. Circuit Court, to grant the following relief. Declare that Garland's refusal to produce the audio lacks any legal justification, and order Garland to produce the audio of Biden and Mark Zwanitzer to the committee. Retain jurisdiction over this and grant further relief as deemed proper, respectfully submitted by attorneys, a whole slew of them, for House Republicans, U.S. House of Representatives. A nice filing there in the D.C. Circuit Court by the Judiciary Committee saying, Garland, you must be ordered to give us the materials. And they're launching other possibilities as well. As we saw from Representative Luna, this is just one avenue of attack in order to get these materials. We'll, of course, see what Garland says and the DOJ says in response. But now let's take a look at why people are so involved in trying to get the audio. It's because our president is long gone. This clip came over from our friend Carly Bonney. She posted this one. Karine came out for another brutal interview session, and somebody asked her about the president's nap time, because apparently he takes a bunch of those so that he can fail during presidential debates and I guess G7 summits and whatever else he does. So here is some concern from the press saying, you know, we need some indicators here that the president is competent. Can you help us, Karine, please?
The record that he's been able to lay on behalf of the American people.
Is there anything, Karine, that would change his mind?
Look, I cannot lay out something that would change the president's mind. He has been very clear, and he's going to continue to build on the unprecedented record that he's been able to lay out for the American people. That's his focus right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jack.
Thank you, Karine. What does the president do outside the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m.?
Well, you heard him speak to supporters yesterday outside of 4 p.m. You saw the president land in North Carolina in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock. What was he doing? He was greeting supporters, hundreds of supporters that showed up to cheer him on after the debate. You saw him speaking at 9 o'clock or at night in New York in front of supporters. So he's been pretty much out there after the hours of 4 p.m. and before 10 a.m. for sure. And so that has been something he has consistently done over the past couple of days, for sure, for certain.
Have an afternoon nap every day.
Let me be very clear about this. This is a president that wakes up every morning and puts the American people first. That's what he does.
Yeah, what time though? And then how long is he putting the American people first before he goes back to bed?
He does that every single day. That is his focus. I am not going to speak to sources out there, unnamed sources out there. That's not what I'm going to speak to. I'm going to speak to what I know, what this president does, and how he is committed to the work
Does he
of the
take
president,
a nap?
Of the commander-in-chief.
Every day.
And his record clearly lays that out and speaks to it. And that's what he's going to continue to do. The American people first, and delivering for them.
Can you also clarify Sungmin's question?
Sure.
I mean, how is it that the president was still tired 12 days after returning from Europe, had a cold, but then went to the Waffle House, and then the following day staged such a huge comeback that he gave those North Carolina remarks? Like, help us understand.
Have you had a cold before?
Of course I've had a cold before.
So you probably, well, come on, Jackie. Let's be very, let's be.
12 days after he returned, though.
But
and
you
he
also,
blamed jet lag yesterday.
Hold on a second. There's a cold, there's a jet lag. You combine that. He continues to work for the American people day in and day out, around the clock. Things happen. And the cold thing is something that you all pointed out during his debate. We didn't even point that out. You all pointed out when you heard his voice being hoarse.
You said he
because
had a
he
cold.
knew he had to push through.
So that's why we said it
He knew he
too.
has to power through. That's what presidents do. If you care about this country and you don't care about yourself, you care about the American people, you care about delivering for this country, you care about how you're going to continue to work every day in and day out, you push through. We've all do that.
Because all these Democrats
We've
who are
all
saying
do
they want
that.
to see him,
But
it
okay,
speaks to that.
But we didn't share that information ahead of time. You all asked what was going on, and then we shared that information. We didn't use that before the debate. You all asked, hey, is he under the weather? And we confirmed that he was under the weather. He pushed through. That's what this president does. He is going to continue to fight for the American people. So he pushed through it. I think anybody who does that, not just the president, should be commended. And he also said, you heard him say this on Friday, when you get knocked down, you get back up. That's what you saw.
Is there any discussion that if the president were to suspend his campaign, that he would also resign? Are there any discussions about
absolutely
the vice
not.
president assuming his duties?
Absolutely not. Go ahead, Kelly.
Nope. So they're just going to burn him out because they can't admit that he's long gone. So Joe Biden had a cold. He had jet lag. He's walking into Waffle House, coughing, shaking hands all over the place. Didn't even have a mask on. So the whole thing obviously is fictional. The president is just gone. That's what the answer is. Byron Donalds knows the truth. Here's what he said when he was asked about this. He posted this on X. Said, the media lied to you about Biden's condition for years. They knew the truth, but they wouldn't report it. Now you've seen Biden for yourself and they can't cover him up anymore. Democrats may try to distance themselves, but the reality is their shared agenda, all of them, every single one of them, no matter who they swap in, whether it's Biden or Kamala or Whitmer or Newsom or whatever, doesn't matter. They're all part of the problem. Here's Byron explaining.
Well, it really doesn't matter what they say. Joe Biden's going to make this decision, which means Joe Biden's going to make this decision along with Hunter, and they're going to go from there. At the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of these Democrats come out because now they're trying to save their own political skins because they have seen that they cannot hide behind Joe Biden. The media is now not protecting Joe Biden because the media lied to the American people, too. They knew what was going on with Joe. They didn't want to report it, but now they have to because everybody has seen what a tragic shape that he is in. So these Democrats are going to come out more and more, one by one, but it won't matter at the end of the day because Joe Biden has to decide what he's going to do. This family, which has been masterful at grifting on behalf of the American government for decades now, I don't know what they're going to decide. We'll see. But like I said, him, Kamala Harris, doesn't matter. They both need to be defeated this November.
And they will be, baby. And the question is, will these audio tapes come out? The White House is going to fight very hard to prevent that from happening. But if somebody approved them coming out, right? If Joe Biden approved them coming out, wouldn't that put to bed all of the concerns? Like, he's got a big problem here. Everyone says he can't talk. He's incompetent. He's like a demented elderly old man who shouldn't be charged with crimes. If the audio tapes were very supportive of Joe, he should just release them. No, they're great. Just release them. They're great. You're going to hear him. He's handling himself, right? So they could say, we have no motive. We didn't even intend to show you those, but okay, we'll release them just to show. He's competent. He's fine. He's totally capable. They won't because he's gone. So the question is, what's happening behind the scenes? And is Garland going to ride this one in? Will the courts take it away from him and say, turn over those audio tapes? And will that happen before the election? That's a big question because boy, oh boy, could you imagine those tapes coming out? If they really wanted to make Joe go away, they'd find some way to get those tapes leaked or out. And that would be the end of it. So we'll, of course, be here continuing to cover this, my friends. We'll see what the DOJ says. We'll see what Republicans do as they continue to hold the DOJ accountable for their subpoenas and for their contempt. We have two people who are sitting away in prison right now because they violated a contempt subpoena from Congress. When is Merrick Garland going to join them? No one's above the law. We'll see if that happens, and we'll be here to continue to cover it, my friends. Thank you so much for joining us as we do. We really appreciate it, you subscribing to our channel. We love it when you invite a friend or family member to come over here and join us so that they can see the madness that's happening in our country around here. We have another great video that we're going to link back up. It's from our first segment about Alvin Bragg and Missouri suing the state of New York. So if you missed that, we'll cue that one up for you next. And of course, we'll look forward to seeing you over there and back here on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that is it for us on the day. As we saw, we got two good segments out. Merrick Garland sued to force the release of the Biden audio tapes by House Republicans. We'll see where that lawsuit goes. And Alvin Bragg sued by the state of Missouri. We're all Missourians now, and we're all trying to stop this election interference before the election occurs because the Democrats are in overdrive. But now, my friends, let's hear from you. Let's see what you have to say about all of this. Of course, we're going to say what's up to our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com as soon as we wrap up here. We'd love to have you join us. We have great member streams in the morning, and we'd love to have you join us. We missed some of these donos from yesterday. What's up? Emorsk says, could Jack Smith be charged once Trump is elected for being illegally appointed? Call all the judges Jack appeared before as witnesses, preventing it from being tried in D.C. courts, thus move out of D.C. Yeah, I don't know if you could hit Jack for just prosecuting. I think he'd probably have a good qualified immunity argument. Well, I was legally appointed. I didn't know what I was doing was illegal. I was following precedent. And I don't know that you'd get to a guilty mindset on that alone, just for the appointment. But I think once Trump got in there and started opening up the, basically investigating the investigators, he'll probably see a bunch of other criminality, prosecutorial misconduct, and other illegalities between Jack Smith, Jay Bratt, and the rest of them. So I think on that basis, yeah, he could be prosecuted. So, of course, just find something to prosecute him for because he committed a bunch of crimes. Jason A., what's up? Membo for 1 month, first month's the hardest, says, things are getting fixed, but we're not out of the woods yet. Thanks for that one, Jason. You're right. Paul M. says, Justice Thomas says an energetic executive is a constitutional requirement. How did we get Sleepy Joe? By theft? Yeah, basically, that's the 2020 election that you're referencing there. Yeah, stolen, rigged election, thanks to the CIA and various secretaries of states, indeed. Rick D, what's up, Rick D? Thanks for bringing in 10 new membos to our amazing community. Rick D is bringing in Tug Simp. We got AE86. We got Frank W. Reviant is here. Holy F is in the house. Maria K, Chase J, Devin M, Lawful X, Angel J, and our friends all cheering on Rick D for bringing in 10 new membos. Thank you, Rick, for inviting 10 new friends in. And 10 new membos. We'll see you on our morning streams. What's up? Restless Medic is in the house. Welcome aboard. Great to see you, Restless Medic. Thanks for joining us. Albert Chrisman in the house. And hey, if you just joined us, make sure you catch this morning's stream because we talked about some fun stuff this morning. Knox is in the house. What's up? Says, TGIF all. I hope everyone has great plans for the fabulous 4th with families and friends. Right back to you, Knox. We're celebrating with Mama G. It's Mama Govea's birthday, and it's going to be great. We're going to do also a watcher meetup debrief tomorrow as part of our Independence Day celebration. Hey, what's up, Restless Medic? So tomorrow, by the way, the show is going to be early. 9 a.m. show tomorrow, noon Pacific is when the show will be because we got afternoon birthday celebrations with Mama G. What's up? Karen V in the house got gifted a membo courtesy of Restless Medic. Restless Medic is bringing in Gas Truckin', Matt G, Leanna the Cuda Chick. We got Alex Jones. Alex Jones is here. Karen A. We got Code Red, Natalie Z, Question Everything, and Tyrannius Cygnus in the house, courtesy of Restless Medic. Thank you, Restless, for bringing in 10 new membos. This one from Nikki P. What's up, Nikki P? Membo for 12 months. Happy anniversary. Says, Robert, your videos are a part of my life. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nikki, for saying that. I totally understand what you're saying there. And thanks for being a part of them. We're in this journey together. I couldn't do it without you. So thanks for being a membo. 1 year, hopefully many more to come. I appreciate you being here and supporting our work. Thank you, Nikki P. This one from Gillis M. Also a new supporter. Great to have you. Bob Dole is here. Says, best law channel, hands down. I don't know about that. There's a lot of good ones out there. But thanks, Robert, says Bob Dole. Membo for 8 months, 1 more month until we have a baby. Thank you, Bob Dole. We got this one from Serdon Trip. Says, did you know that Big Fanny, Tish, James, Kamala are all part of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority? No. I haven't. Have you ever heard of them before? No, I haven't. Is that a real thing? I'm trying to figure out what this is, where this is going to go. I don't really know where this is going. 1 more month until we have a 1-year anniversary. They're part of the AKA sorority. What does that one mean? I don't know. Is there a punchline to this? I'm a little nervous. What's up, Chubby says, all right, so the bird flu causes pink eye or something? I don't know what's going on. Conjunctivitis is what we're seeing. Medicine has it all wrong. Last time I had conjunctivitis, they gave me drops for it. I just gave the government $134 million for Moderna or something. You did? I just saved the government. Oh, I see. I just saved the government. Well, I don't know. Okay. I don't know. 4 cases. I know. It's a big one. Hey, what's up? I'm Harry. Just Harry became a supporter on the YouTubes. And Bobsco also gifted a membo to Brian C. Welcome aboard, Brian C. And thank you, Bobsco, for bringing in new membos. What's going on? This one from Stacy A50. Hey, thank you, Stacy A. Says, thank you for everything you do, Rob. Thank you, Stacy, for saying that. What a nice thing to say. And thanks for being a member over on Locals. Great to have you over there. We got this one from Michelle P. What's up, Michelle P? Says, I wonder if the change to an 18th September sentencing date is a false flag because early voting starts in September. Could this be another attempt to influence the vote? We already know how the judge will rule. It makes one wonder. Yeah, I was also thinking about that, Michelle. What does it give them? Well, it keeps them under Trump under their jurisdiction a little bit longer. It extends the gag a little bit longer. It pushes the sentencing into the election season even further, which means if they drop, so in other words, they have this rabbit out of a hat that they can pull. They're just kind of saving that in case they need it. So they can still call an audible. It's like when you're playing that game of Uno and you're all dropping the Uno cards and you have that one card that's like really good. I forget what it is. Like, you get to pick your own color. It's a reverse 4, whatever. I don't know what it was. But it's like a really good one. You kind of hang on to that one for a while. That's maybe their card. And they didn't want to burn it so early in the game, so they just postponed it. And in the law, we talk about primacy and recency. Okay, what is the most intense thing? What's the most recent thing? That sticks in the brain. So maybe they postpone it again into October. Who knows? All right, it's a good question. And thank you, Michelle, for the very nice donut. It's a great question, and I like how you're thinking on that. Chubby, what's up, says, I believe Kleinsmith wasn't even disbarred. All right, he was suspended. The probation and the suspension were also time served, so he didn't even really get a slap on the wrist, just a paid vacation while they investigated. Really nice of them to do that for him. Bannon goes to prison. Navarro in prison. What's up? Eric is a new supporter over on the YouTubes. Thanks for supporting us, Eric. We'll see you on the Membo streams. Hey, what's up, Larry J? Big deal that this lawsuit is before the Supreme Court. As a case between the states, it must be tried by SCOTUS. Yeah, I mean, it's much better than having this in the D.C. Circuit Court or one of those courts, in a New York court in front of Judge Kaplan or something. I totally agree. SCOTUS, I don't know that they're going to accept it or do anything about it. But I like that it's there and that there is that possibility. What's up, Don? Says, hey, Don M says, Rob, thank you for everything. You rock. And happy Independence Day to you too, Don, and to all of our friends here. And a happy birthday to Mama G. May she have a blessed day. Happy Independence Day. Watching the Watchers fam. Amazing, Don. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, and I hope everybody's gearing up for some nice barbecue, some nice celebration. We have a beautiful country in spite of what some people are trying to do to it. And we'll celebrate it tomorrow. Knox is here, says, I love this Missouri suit. Seriously, I think the sheer hubris of the Democrat machine, they never gave a darn what the rest of the country may want. Notice I did not curse, Robert. I did notice that, Knox. It's very, we're growing up, I guess, here or something. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, it was a good suit. The Democrats are just about raw power. They don't care about the law, whatever it takes to get it done. Hey, check this out. Curtis Bartle, 2 years as a membo for 24 months. Curtis, that's a long time, my friend. Thanks for being here for so long. Happy 4th all. And 2024, make America great again. That's Trump, even with a blue tie. Thanks, Curtis. We got this one from Sheila P. What's up? Sheila P. 10 membos coming in. Hey, LawTube Junkies coming in. What's up, LawTube Junkie? Glad you got a membo. Yep is in the house. Electrics is here. Marlene S. Michael L. Felix Abel. Salty C. Saintly Beginnings. Basil R. And the Roz Rodriguez. All gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila P. Thank you, Sheila, for bringing in new membos. Eric is bringing in 5 more. Amazing. We got a bunch of new membos here. Christo B. What's up? Chris N. Escar is here. Genshikin. And James F. gifted membos, courtesy of Eric, who is bringing in 5 new membos. And 5 more from Eric. Check it out. What's up, Eric? Thanks for these. Goose Toots is coming in. Lamberto Figueroa in the house. What's up, Greg Bees? We got Ann Acism and DY3116 in the house, courtesy of Eric. Thanks again, Eric, for all the new membos today. I appreciate those. We've got Fighter 4 Street says, hey, you. Hey, you back, Fighter 4 Street. We got Michael S. is a new supporter. Thanks for becoming a supporter, Michael S. And all of our new members, check out the morning stream from today. It was fun. Cowboy Rob says, God, I wish Robert Hur would have been like, oh, you're confident. Okay, fine. Then, well, I guess we'll charge you. Can't have it both ways, Joe. Yeah, so ask Joe. Joe, do you feel competent to stand trial? Okay. So you think that you were in control of your faculties? Oh, clearly. Okay, great. We're going to charge you with the crime. Enjoy it. ELF in the house says, hey, 10 membos coming in, courtesy of ELF. ELF, thanks for bringing the 10 membos in. And we've got them coming in. We got George S., Kat McC, Will T, Sean P, Tinch is coming in. Thomas Payne is here. Charisse Teeter. We got Colin K, Jackal's here. Robert Ian and others shouting out ELF for bringing in 10 new membos. Thank you, ELF, for doing that. We got this one from Spuds. It says, one way around the 12th is that if Trump is going to have a landslide victory and take a state like New York, he can forego the 30 electors from Florida and pick Byron Donalds. The electors shall meet in their respective state. And so Spuds says, just sacrifice Florida? You're crazy, Spuds. Crazy, but I like it. Sheila P, what's up, Sheila? Super nice of you to say this. Love you, Rob. Love this chat as well. Full of the best people ever. And there's no doubt about that. That is 100% true. 100% true. Thank you, Sheila P. And you're a part of it. That's why it's so great. Thank you, Sheila, for always being so supportive. Thank you, ELF, for the donos of the new membos. And Mustafa says, if the prosecution holds an evidentiary hearing to prove Trump's actions were not official, can Trump submit legitimate election fraud evidence? So I think it's going to relate to, probably not. I mean, maybe in the J6 case, but is that evidence relevant to, let's say, the Alvin Bragg case? The only question, I think, is whether it was arguably official business. If Trump was the president, man, a lot of that stuff's going to be official business. So if the evidence used against him was official in any way, that evidence cannot come in unless you can show that it overcomes the presumption of immunity. So, in other words, I don't think you need election fraud or anything to reach that. Like that's kind of shifting the burden over to Trump. And I think the judge wouldn't even allow that in. It's not related to this. So I see what you're saying. Maybe he can get it in, but I don't know that it's going to be, it depends on the case. Like it's going to be relevant. On the J6 case, I'd say sure. Yeah. Because Trump can say, well, part of my job as the head of the executive branch is to stop fraud. And I think that there was fraud. Here's what I know about the fraud. And so as the leader of the DOJ, as the president, my job is to prevent that. So it depends on the case. But again, it's going to be about immunity. So it's not about evidence. But if Trump is saying, I said that thing, and they say that was unofficial, he can say, no, it was official because I got this and that was fraud. And then that can come in that way. But it's related to the immunity case, not to the ultimate charges. So it will come back in at the evidentiary portion. And then the idea is that they are official acts, which invokes immunity so that there will be no trial because the case should be dismissed because it should have never been charged in the first place. It's a great question, Mustafa. Great question. And it's very, I'd say case dependent. So it depends. Hey, Mini Wheat says, here's some watching the watchers wisdom. The fact that Joe Biden is only good between 10 a.m. and 4 a.m. only proves that he's in middle to late stages of dementia. It's called sundowner system, which shows up when someone is entering mid to late dementia or mental decline per the Alzheimer's Society. The Biden camp cannot lie about this anymore. They just confirmed it without even saying the words. Okay, knowing is half the battle. Joe only has like a couple good days, a couple good hours rather. And so they're telling us that, and we have a reverse diagnosis. Oh, well, we know why that is. Alzheimer's, dementia. Sheila P, 10 more membos. Thank you, Sheila. Super amazing. Check this out. Guess who's coming in? Christy L, you're coming in. Juliet B, Angie E, Samantha W, Becky's here. Silver Umbrella. We got William S, Tracy Oaks, Laura, Lanette Crute, and Mama Bear, all gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila P, bringing in 10 new membos. Hey, Goose Toot says, where can I get a suit jacket, no sleeves, and a turtleneck like Karine? Is it summer or is it winter? I don't know. Could I get it for maybe climate change are us? Good question, Goose Toots. I don't know where she does her shopping, but it does feel a little bit warm for a turtleneck. Yeah, I don't know where to get those clothes. I have no idea. Thank you, Goose Toots, for that one. Mustafa, I was going to make a comment. We'll just leave it. Mustafa says, corruption, dementia, and pride. What a recipe. President of the United States running the country. Hey, what's up? Daniel B. also became a new supporter. Grab that morning stream from this morning. Patrick H. Membo for 4 months, almost halfway to a baby, says, got my badge back. I'd like to thank the Academy. It's great to have you back, Patrick. Thanks for joining us. 4 months as a Membo, on our way to a baby. Dolphin fan is the man and is here. Says, gifted 10 Membos. What's up, Dolphin fan? Thanks for bringing in new Membos. Another Man's Treasure Lakeland is coming in. It's a pretty intense name. Julie Jordan. What's up, Matthew Gilmore? We got Eaters Ufager. We've got Kit is here. Woot, big up, says JC. Timothy W. Nutter Brudder. We got Tom Fitton is hot. Shout out to Judicial Watch. Neil Nice, Captain Safety, and Chai Row Knight brought in gifted Membos, courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man in the house. What's up, Eddie Van Zant from Texas? Says, everyone is worried about Joe Biden. I'm worried about Karine Jean-Pierre. She said Joe Biden runs circles around her. So, maybe. I don't know. We're talking about a very low, like very bottom end of the bell curve in the White House. They're all like in this area. So maybe Joe Biden is running circles around KJP. I don't know. And maybe KJP is running circles around Kamala. Doesn't mean anybody's any competent at all. Anything competent. Jim R. says, if I was just following orders, didn't work for the Nazis, then it shouldn't work for the Democrats either, okay? They should all be in federal prison. You don't just get to say, well, I thought I was doing the right thing, like Jack Smith, so you get the benefit of qualified immunity. How about no? Jail. Huey says, well, he's a super spreader. Yeah, talking about Joe. He was infecting all of Waffle House with his post-debate germs. Disgusting. Didn't even have a mask on. Hey, what's up, Pritchie? Very nice to see you. Says, man, I've been away far too long. What a result we're having. The dominoes are starting to fall. Thank God for Thomas, Judge Clarence Thomas, adding the illegal appointment conversation to start another course of action. Says, we're bringing in 10 new Membos incoming. Great to see you, Pritchie. Hopefully you're doing well, my friend. Glad to see you back in the chat. Hey, Knox is here. Says, yeah, it's a real sorority. It's Alpha Kappa Alpha. It's huge here. Most of the black lawyers and judges are sorority sisters. It does matter. They are very active and united. Interesting. I've never heard of it. Alpha Kappa Alpha. So like AKA, something like that. I thought it was going to be like a joke or something, but no, it's a real thing. Thanks, Knox. Libby T, do you think they will start impeaching Trump when he becomes president and they keep prosecuting him? Yeah, I think that the DOJ actually has already said that they're intending to continue the prosecutions on into, let's say Trump wins, they're going to keep prosecuting him until he takes office and beyond that. And they'll set up some more stuff. They'll rig it again. They'll execute the same plan like they did last time. They are right now. And they're also adding in actual open criminal prosecutions, 4 of them. Thanks, Libby. Acid Burn says, I'm very poor, but my stepmother got me. Last I can donate. Well, Acid Burn, that's super generous of you, my friend. I'll tell you, I appreciate the dono and the support, but I certainly don't want to take it if you could also use it if it's a necessity. So, in other words, I don't want to put you out. Thank you for that. I don't want you to donate if it's going to be a hardship. So, but this one is a good last one. Thanks for sending it in. Otherwise, we'll wish you well. And shout out to your stepmom for sending that in. And you for sending it in. I do appreciate it. Jim R, what's up? Bring in another new Membo. Jack D is coming in, courtesy of Jim R. What's up, Jim R? Thanks for doing that. Jack Mack, what's up, Jack? Nice to see you again. Happy birthday tomorrow, Mama G. And Jack got to meet Mama G over there in Vegas. Good to see you. We got Rob says, any info on Rudy Giuliani? More lawfare. Last I heard, he got disbarred in New York, I believe it was. But that's about the latest on it. I know he's got a YouTube channel and he does shows over there, and we'll send you over there for the latest on him. But thanks for that one, Rob. Acid Burn, what's up? Rob, all I do is watch the internet. You are number one, and Mark Levin is number two. Shout out to Mark Levin. Great show. I grew up listening to some of Mark Levin because he'd also fill in for Rush and stuff. What's up, Beth? Thankful for all of you and the USA. Indeed, Beth. We have a beautiful country, which is why we're so upset people are trying to wreck it. We're not going to let them. Thanks for that, Beth. Hey, Pritchie, 10 membos coming in. Amazing, Pritchie. Thanks for doing this. Look who's coming in. We got Carol C., Myra P., Otto, nobody in particular got one, Jeremiah G., Kevin D., Evroy A., Jolene J., and the Lonely Cackapoke is coming in, along with Thos Allman, gifted membos. And Pritchie's bringing in even more. Craig Cooper, what's up? Cynthia C., Bryce L., R2D2's here, AJ Nunya, Nate R., Heidi R., Scott D., Maria F., I. Kimbo, and others, gifted membos courtesy of Pritchie. Great to see everybody. And don't forget to check out the morning stream from this morning. Hey, Jack Mack is here. 5 membos from Jack Mack. And I'm sure those are coming in. And we're excited about all the new membos from Jack Mack. Thank you, Jack Mack, for sending those in. You guys know who you are. And Jigum shared this one. Happy 4th of July weekend, everybody. Here's your boy. There was that very funny, interesting fireworks video. That guy was trying to light some fireworks in his front yard and something went a little bit wrong there. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you. Hey, Voice says, glad to see fighting back, but it feels a little too late. Voice of the People says, people are too dug in now. When anyone is ready to speak their mind, Off-Label Podcast is your platform. Ready to host you too, Rob. K. Bean will be coming soon. Woo, that's going to be a great show. Can't wait to hear that one. K. Bean over on Off-Label Podcast. Sounds fun, Voice. What's up, Carrie B? Became a supporter over on the tubes along with Senorita. 978 became a supporter. And we're so nice to have you. So nice to have you, Senorita. And hey, here's one from John McGarvey. Watching the Watchers crossing the river with the fam. And there's Mama G right there. I love that one. All right. And so, my friends, thank you so much for sending those donos in. We very much appreciate it. Let's say what's up to our friends on X before we go on over to locals for our members only after party, where we're going to hang out a little bit and see what's cooking over there. We've got, what's up? Fred Petamonte is saying, for those who don't know, inherent contempt means Congress literally sends the sergeant at arms and literally arrests the Garland. Literally arrests Garland. We have Miss Skeeters in the house. So what's up, Miss Skeeter? Says, like the old days when mom and dad would turn on the nightly news, our house gathers each evening for Robert Govea. Thanks for bringing quality news to our home, Robert. Miss Skeeter, thank you for saying that. That is such a nice compliment. And shout out to the household. Thanks for watching the show. And thanks for joining us as we go through this maddening news. But we're having a lot of fun too. Jim says, can SCOTUS find that they interfered in the election or any of the other accusations and pursue criminal charges, or at least recommend them? I don't think they would recommend anything. I haven't really seen much like that. I mean, they would rip them if there was a need for that. But the real sanction against the government is the dismissal of the case. That's how they get penalized. It would be a big black eye if they got it dismissed. Hey, what's up? Azok is in the house. Isabel Allen's over there. Al Holman's wishing everybody a great 4th. And some other interesting comments over there from other people on the X platform. If you want to follow us, this is the account you can follow. There's also some other good watchers out there in the Twitter X wild. And so we'd love to see you over there. But that is going to be it for us on the day. I think we saw one more come in from Purple Pros. Thank you, Purple Pros. Says, why should we support lawfare? Who benefits by laws such as taking guns from felons? America is policed by social workers who, by the way, have immunity like judges, from Purple Pros. Interesting. Well, it depends on, I think, how you define lawfare. So I think lawfare is illegitimate, using the law illegitimately to wage war on your opponents, in which case I wouldn't support lawfare, generally speaking. But if the Democrats are going to engage in lawfare, the Republicans better know how to play. It's like if somebody's punching you in the face, you better do something about it. So you better either stop the punching or punch back, right? This is all political and peaceful. It's just an analogy. My FBI agent is getting irritated. My YouTube censor is getting irritated. Are you getting violent? No. I'm just saying you have to fight fire with fire. So if they're going to wreck the Constitution and start prosecuting our side, we better figure out how to stop it or respond. And who benefits by laws like taking guns from felons? Well, it depends on who you ask. I mean, arguably, the people taking the guns say the felons are dangerous, and so they'll say everybody's protected. Other people will say there's no correlation between felons and increased gun violence, maybe unless it's somebody who's got a gun crime. But yeah, America is policed by a bunch of people who have no business policing us. A bunch of good comments there. Thank you for that one. Hey, Voice of the People, bringing in 10 more membos. And look who these are. We've got this one from Troll is coming in. What's up, Mr. Wabbit Killer brought in, Voice of the People. Philip C, Justin Y, Clinton G, Randy K, Reed's Nest, Karen W, Bella E, Mary Jo Stevenson. What's up? We got Troll also commenting on this. Voice of the People bringing in some 10 membos and a bunch of people shouting out our friend, Voice of the People. Lots of fun. Thanks, Voice, for bringing in our newest of membos. And Jack Mack says, Rob, how many polo shirts do you own, Rob? I don't know. I haven't counted. But if I'm just thinking in my closet, 30 maybe? 30? I need to get some new ones. It's time to retire some of these. But yeah, a lot. I wear a lot of them. It's, trying to be classy, we're leading the polo revolution. The question is for you, Jack, how many polos do you have? Probably not enough. All right, thanks for asking about it. But my friends, that is going to be it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only debrief and after party. As a reminder, tomorrow the show is going to be early, 9 a.m. Pacific and 12 noon Eastern time. We're going to do a little celebration on Independence Day. We'll do a debrief on the Watcher meetup, share some photos on all of that. It's going to be a ton of fun. So mark your calendars, my friends. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com to debrief on this puppy. We have robertgovea.com, which is our website, and watcherlodge.com. Thanks for checking out the wellness company, the sponsor of today's show, down in the description below. We want to shout out our mods and our meme smiths, who are amazing, including K-Bean in the house. We got Just Cause, Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zach Nichols, Jan Eck, Dog Digger, Economy Pilot, Donut, Mind Me, Carrie B, and Zulu, all helping mod the fort down. Sleepy Dog Lee, Nathan N810, Geegum Geegum, and Glocky McGlock, along with Elliot, our Doc Master, beautifying the place. But my friends, that is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground. Tomorrow, we're going to be back here early. It's going to be Independence Day, and we cannot wait to get into the news. And in order to do that, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.